All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Turn 4 podcast. This time it is the season finale of season 3 of the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Daniel, and I'm here joined by Addison. Last week I was under the weather, so we couldn't really, I couldn't, I couldn't film this podcast, but yeah. But although, this is the season. All right. So, anyways,
Sorry about that.
apologize for the noise in the background. But yeah, so we're here to recap pretty much everything that's gone down in the championship race. So starting with Phoenix with our Cup Series championship, Joey Logano is now a two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. So Addison, start us out with championship weekend, your overall takeaway of championship weekend and being there in person.
Yeah, at first, literally from the start, I thought Chastain would be the one who would steal it. I mean, he would have stolen it if there would have been a late caution and he would have got like a good restart. But in all honesty, I didn't think Logano would be able to do it. I thought he would be challenged. He'll get like some challenges from like the championship four behind him. Maybe Chase Elliott would have been a good guy who would challenge him if he would have not been wrecked on that. If he would have not turned himself on that restart by Chastain. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Here's one thing though. Joey Logano is now a two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, but he pretty much throughout the whole, even from practice and qualifying. I mean, practice he was the fastest in practice. Qualifying he was the fastest, and pretty much throughout the whole race he led majority of the laps. The only one who really had something for Logano was mostly his teammate Ryan Blaney, who pretty much ended the season winless. And now with Joey Logano winning his second championship, how does that change Joey Logano's legacy now? Now that he has gotten a second championship, how does that change his legacy?
Well, maybe in the future he'll start winning more championships, or may be in that championship contention, but maybe not enough to win another championship. But maybe it could lead him to more championships in the future. Maybe.
Where do you put him based on now with two championships? He now joins Elite Company. He joins Kyle Busch. He joins Terry Labonte. He joins, I believe, I'm not sure who else he joins, but as two-time Cup Series champion. So 2 championships, 31 career wins. Where do you put him? On if you would category or list?
If you'd say if I would put him on the active list, I would put him probably
or like all time, or where'd you put him right? Like,
oh boy, I'd say, oh boy, who are the other two-time champions?
So other two-time champions are Kyle Busch and Terry Labonte. So
I would say put Kyle Busch on the top and Logano. I would say put him in like maybe either second or third with Terry Labonte. Because look at Logano's first championship. He ended up having like 3 wins, 2 before what was Homestead back then, and then looking at this season, he has like now.
Okay, so looking at the all-time. Oh, my bad. So looking at the all-time wins list, so Joey Logano is now tied with Truex now with 31 career wins. So more than likely, I feel Logano's going to surpass Truex. I don't know about Truex. I mean, but I feel like Logano's going to end up with more career wins than Truex. Knowing Logano's age. But now here's the thing. Now looking at this list. So speaking of Terry Labonte actually has 22 career wins and 2 championships. So I put Logano right above Terry Labonte. Now, with 31 career wins, his next win, he'll tie Dale Jarrett with 32 career wins. Now, Dale Jarrett has 32 career wins and 2 champion and only 1 championship. Would you put Logano above Dale Jarrett?
Probably.
All right. So, and here's the thing now. Logano's 32 years old. I mean, pretty much he's kind of already considered a veteran. But if you take a look at his age, he is still young. I mean, Logano still has another good, I say 10-12 years, good years left in the sport. I mean, if he keeps that consistency up, How many career wins do you see him getting to?
Probably like my guess up to 50, 51, 52, maybe. If he keeps the consistency up for the next years he's in NASCAR.
Up to 50? Because here's the thing, he could probably get up to he'll get around the 50 range, maybe 60. I don't know. I mean, if he keeps that consistency going. Now, but when it comes to championships, maybe possibly win a third one, maybe get to 4. Who knows? But here's one thing though. If he gets 4 championships, would you put him in that conversation with guys like Jeff Gordon or Bobby Allison, Darrell Waltrip?
I'd say yes.
I mean, because here's one thing though. Yes and no. But Jeff Gordon, I mean, he has 93 career wins. Now, I don't think Logano's going to get there. I don't think he's going to get that many wins. I mean, but I would kind of put him in that conversation, but I say by the end of career, I say I put him in that top 10 conversation.
I would say so too.
All right, so now talking about the incident with Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott, do you feel like Ross Chastain was at fault, or do you feel like Chase Elliott pulled a bad block on Chastain and pretty much spun himself out?
Okay. Well, the first time I watched it, I'm gonna say that Elliott probably was just being aggressive at blocking on restarts, and in all honesty, I would say Chase is the one that's at fault because as I said, he was just trying to put a block on Chastain, and it failed. So yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there's kind of some moments where it looked like Chastain was possibly spun Chase Elliott out, but looking at that replay, Chase Elliott did pull a bad block. And however, there are some Chase Elliott fans that pretty much they never like to admit that when their driver makes a mistake, and they always want to blame it so that it's always someone else's fault. But looking at that, I honestly, Chastain didn't do nothing wrong. Chastain was
even if Chase does it to himself, they're still gonna blame the guy that hits. The Chase fans are still gonna blame the guy that hits Chase.
Oh yeah, but if it's the other way around, then they would say, "Oh, it's a racing deal." Or like had it been the other way around, they would have blamed Chastain for pulling a bad block.
Yeah, like Fontana, Larson walled Chase Elliott, and then at Atlanta, the second Atlanta race, he did the same thing, but to Corey LaJoy.
I mean, you see the double standard right there.
Yep.
They blame Kyle Larson for pretty much dumping it to his teammate, but they say, oh, it's a racing deal between him and Corey LaJoy, or even between him and Logano at Bristol in 2020, the not spring race, but it was technically a summer race already at that time. But I mean, here's one thing though. Looking at that block kind of reminded me a little bit of Carl Edwards when he pulled that block on Joey Logano in 2016. And at first, some people thought Logano might have wrecked him, but looking at that replay, Carl Edwards pretty much pulled a bad block, and we all know what ended up happening after that. Pretty much that turned out to be Carl Edwards' last race, but yeah.
At least Chase Elliott's block would have almost been similar to what Edwards did to Logano in 2016. It didn't end up being that bad, just a single car spin and not a bunch of cars collected.
I mean, with Carl Edwards, I mean, his was a pretty big hit. And then I remember he got hit by Casey Kane, and his car pretty much went airborne. And I feel like maybe that wreck might have been that deciding factor of him wanting to step away, because that same year, I remember Junior had his concussion that year, and I feel like maybe that put that all together, that might have probably been a contributing factor to him wanting to step away from full-time racing. Now onto the Xfinity race. Ty Gibbs pretty much dominated that race. Not really dominated the race, but Noah Gragson also had a run for it. But Noah Gragson's pit crew pretty much screws it up in the end, and Ty Gibbs goes on to win the NASCAR Xfinity Series championship at 20 years old. But what a crazy 24 hours it had to be for Ty Gibbs. I mean, goes on to celebrate the championship, and just hearing the next day that his dad, Coy Gibbs ended up passing away. I mean, how does the situation change Ty Gibbs? Knowing that he now lost his father, knowing that, I mean, what's next for Ty Gibbs? I mean, how does this tragedy affect Ty Gibbs? Or how does this change Ty Gibbs in a way?
I would say that he'll probably go from being the aggressive driver he was in the Xfinity Series, and when he goes to the Cup Series next year, he'll probably be less aggressive and like the less like they'll probably be like a different Ty Gibbs next year.
Do you feel like we'll start seeing a more mature Ty Gibbs? Now, I'm not saying he'll stop being aggressive. I mean, if that's his driving style, that's fine. But do you feel like we'll start seeing a more humble Ty Gibbs or a more like mature Ty Gibbs?
Pretty much.
Okay, so I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, knowing Ty Gibbs, yeah, I kind of been, prior to the championship race, to Xfinity championship race, yeah, I mean, I was hard on Ty Gibbs. I was very hard on him. I mean, obviously, I wasn't upset. I was upset about, about what happened to Martinsville when he
wrecked both.
Yeah, yeah, when he wrecked Brandon Jones. But I mean, here's the thing. I mean, losing a father, I don't wish that on anybody, to be honest with you. So pretty much all the emotions I had on Ty Gibbs when he won the championship and stuff, that kind of shifted quickly right after I heard what was going on. I mean, I remember when being on the track. I remember when we heard that Ty Gibbs wasn't going to race the Cup race due to a family emergency. My first thought was it might have been something that happened in the Gibbs family, but I don't think it might be too big of an issue. But then I remember kept hearing rumors on Twitter that someone in the Gibbs family passed away. Some were saying that it was Coy Gibbs that passed away, and some were even saying Joe Gibbs had passed away. But it turns out that Coy Gibbs ended up passing away, unfortunately. But if there's like a positive side from his death, is that he got to see his son win Xfinity Series championship before he passed away. So I mean, that's kind of a positive.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I know I was mad that Ty Gibbs did win the championship, but even though after hearing Coy Gibbs pass away, I mean, and I kind of did want to just take back all this stuff. I mean, yes, Ty Gibbs did have a bit of a roller coaster after winning the championship, but I still honestly feel Gragson like should have won the championship because here's why. He had the most wins this season, and like since 2018 to this year, that there's been a little bit of a curse. How the driver who has the most wins doesn't win the championship, and the one that has the least amount of wins ends up winning the championship.
I mean, not the least amount of wins, but least amount of wins compared to the other driver. I mean, because it hasn't been like, a driver with one win has won a championship, but I mean, someone who has had less wins than the driver who had the most wins ended up winning the championship.
Like 2018, Tyler Reddick had like 2 wins, Daytona and Homestead. 2019 was also Reddick. I do not know how many races he won that year. 6, compared to Christopher Bell, who won 8. 2020 was
Austin Cindric.
No, I know it was
Briscoe won the most.
Briscoe won like 6 or 7, and
no, he actually won 9.
Won about like.
Briscoe actually won 9 races in 2020.
Briscoe won 9 races, and Cindric won like 4 or 5 or 6. And then last year it was both Cindric and Allmendinger who had like 4 or 5 wins combined. Hemrick, who was winless going into Phoenix, won the race, that being his only career win so far, and even his only championship so far. And of course, this year, Gragson was 8, and Ty Gibbs was 7. Yeah.
I mean, not only that, but I mean, Noah Gragson has really showed. I mean, he pretty much was one of the fastest cars all year long. I mean, he pretty much showed. I mean, he pretty much every race this year in Xfinity, he's really shown speed. And speaking of Ty Gibbs, he's actually moving up to full time in the NASCAR Cup Series, but this time he'll be but he'll be driving the number 54 and instead of the number 18. So that means the 18 we will not see an 18 car next year in the Cup Series. So do you feel like Joe Gibbs Racing retired that number out of respect for what Kyle Busch has for the legacy he's done, that he's left in that 18 car?
Likely, I would say yes.
All right. So, I mean, I feel like even though Kyle Busch, I mean, ended his relationship at Joe Gibbs Racing on not really good terms, but I mean, retiring that 18 car kind of shows that in a way they kind of respect what Kyle has done for them. You know, what I mean, pretty much he entered Joe Gibbs Racing as this 23-year-old brashy kid who, you know, got dropped out of probably the top team in NASCAR and in motorsports, as in Hendrick Motorsports. And pretty much he kind of took that second chance at Joe Gibbs Racing and pretty much accomplished up to, I mean, he pretty much accomplished 52, I think 54 wins over there, 2 championships there. I mean, I gotta say the 18 is a number that Kyle Busch has really, I mean, you know, that the 18 was Joe Gibbs Racing's original number when Joe Gibbs Racing started in 1993. And that, I mean, you know, you had drivers like Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte that have won races in that car. Even Bobby Labonte won a championship in that car. But Kyle Busch, he kind of elevated that 18 car. I mean, he took over the 18 car when at that time when it was probably one of the worst cars at that time, and at the time when he came in. While that the pretty much, well, not the worst car, but that car was struggling. I mean, you had J.G. Yaley drive those 2 years and didn't really deliver in that car until Kyle Busch took over that ride, and pretty much the rest has been history.
Yeah.
All right, so and on to the Truck Series. So Zane Smith goes on to win his second. Not his second. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a long week, and but anyway, so Zane Smith goes on to win the Truck Series championship after finally his third attempt at the championship, for winning the Truck Series championship. Do you feel like with that last pit stop, do you feel like he gave it away?
Well, was that last pit stop the second to last caution that came out, or was it the last one that he made that pit stop and messed up?
No, the last one where he made the pit stop and messed up.
Well, if it was a pit stop before the last caution when Majeski spun, of course Rhodes was leading, and I kind of felt like Rhodes would have ran away with the championship. I mean, Zane Smith was kind of struggling to pass. He did almost try to pass him, but couldn't do it. But like I said, if Majeski would have not spun out like to cause that to create the last yellow, I could say that Ben Rhodes would have run away with the championship. But for Zane Smith, third time's a charm.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks for a moment that Ben Rhodes was about to go back to back.
Yeah, he almost did go back to back. It was close for it.
Yeah, I mean, and here's one trend I noticed out of all 3 series this year, and I don't think we've ever seen this in a championship race since this playoff format has started, where in all 3 series the pole winner has gone on to win the championship. I mean, a final 4 who has started on the pole has gone on to win the championship, because the Truck Series you had Zane Smith started on the pole, went on to win the championship and also won the race. You had Ty Gibbs, who started on the pole for the Xfinity Series, won the race and the championship. And then you had the Cup Series. You had Joey Logano, who started on the pole, won the race and the championship. So all 3 series, it's been pretty much the driver who has gone on to win the pole has gone on to win the championship. And I don't think we've seen that. But, I mean, trucks, I kind of knew Zane Smith was going to be the guy to beat. Xfinity, I kind of expected Gragson to take that championship. But for Cup, I kind of thought it was going to be Chastain with all that hype that he was getting, and probably Christopher Bell, maybe even as well, after, you know, pretty much both races, the other 2 races that he won, he was in must-win situations, and knowing that this was a walk-off game, not a walk-off game, but a race, kind of a walk-off event race, where pretty much it was a one race and winner takes all. I thought Christopher Bell would kind of be, you know, in that moment where he would shine once again, but this time winning the championship.
He was I mean, if that caution would have not come out for Alex Bowman, he was literally up there with Logano
Oh yeah,
running fifth while Logano was running fourth. I mean, like I said, if that caution would have not come out from Bowman, I mean, he would have had a good chance.
yeah. I mean, I think for Christopher Bell, I mean, it's kind of same thing happened once they got to that final pit stop, 18-second pit stop for his pit crew. I mean, pretty much they gave it away right there, and pretty much right after when we got to the last restart, pretty much no one was able to catch Logano. I mean, Ryan Blaney did have a really fast car. I mean, it looks like probably Ryan Blaney was finally gonna get that elusive win this season, but Ryan Blaney pretty much has to wait till 2023 for him to get back to victory lane.
Watch, he might have a breakout year. Denny Hamlin went winless in 2018 and got multiple wins in 2019. Blaney winless this year. Could he
Okay,
get more wins next year?
Here's the thing. Would you consider Ryan Blaney this to be a bad season for Ryan Blaney? Would you consider?
Okay, I wouldn't. I would say no. I mean, if he would have a bad season, he'd be like finishing outside the top five on almost every race. But kind of this year, he has had the car to win, but just hasn't been able to put it all together. And of course, he had a chance to win it at a couple of the super speedways, but just didn't have the good push to win. And 'cause like I said, he in some races he's had the car to win, but just hasn't been able to pull it off.
See, that's kind of been the trend with Blaney's pretty much his whole career is that there's been moments where he's had cars where he's had cars that were capable of winning, but just somehow just couldn't put it all together. I mean, and then there's been wins where he would back into, and and it's like here's the thing, like Blaney, he's shown he can be consistent. He's a very consistent driver. He's capable of running out front, but it's like we've been waiting for him to take that next step. Taking that next step to be right up there in the championship hunt. Like kind of take that next step and become a championship driver on a yearly basis. Finally taking that next step. I mean, and now that he got that extension at Penske, I mean, maybe next season he finally breaks through and starts getting. I mean, we saw 2021. I mean, he finally got his first multi-win season, but I feel like next season for Blaney, I'm kind of expecting him to finally take that next step and become a championship level driver, like a championship threat. To pretty much. I mean, I don't think, I don't think he's, I don't think we're gonna see like another win this season for Blaney, but I'm kind of expecting him to kind of take that next step though, like in that next step into, becoming an elite driver, becoming an elite championship threat. I mean, that's kind of that next step I'm still waiting for Blaney to take. I mean, we've kind of been waiting these past few years that, okay, this finally might be that year where he finally takes that next step, and starts becoming a championship level driver. I mean, he's shown he can go out there and compete on a weekly basis, compete for wins on a weekly basis, but is he ready to take that step to become a championship threat? I think that's kind of the main question that for Blaney that we had to all wonder heading into 2023.
It could be a possibility.
All right, so now we're going to transition into the Turn 4 pit stop. But before we get into the Turn 4 pit stop, we'd like to thank the sponsor of today's episode of the Turn 4 podcast, Lionel Racing, the official diecast of NASCAR. Collect your 124 and 164 scale diecast of your favorite NASCAR driver at lionelracing.com and any Lionel retail store. And also collect the 124 race version diecast of the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series champion, and be on the lookout for the NASCAR for a new wave of the NASCAR Authentics at your local Walmart and your local Target. So here's what I have. I have Joey Logano's 2018 Shell Pennzoil diecast, and I also have which pretty much is the driver that won the championship, Joey Logano. So yeah, and Edison, what do you got?
Next gen cars. Both race wins are both ones I got at Phoenix. Kurt Busch's Kansas win in the Jordan brand car. And Galbus's last win with Joe Gibbs, and the last time we see the 18 in victory lane is Bristol car, the Crunchy Cookie.
All right. So here's what we got in the turn 4 pit stop. I'm gonna just pull it up real quick. All right, here we go. All right, Noah Gragson will be running the Snowball Derby. NASCAR kicking off the 75th anniversary with float in Rose Bowl Parade. Let's see. Hermie Sadler running for Virginia State Senate.
Whoa.
Trackhouse Racing looks to expand in other sports areas. Eric Moses leaves Nashville Super Speedway for Fiesta Bowl. Let's see. Let's see what else we got over here. Let's see. Tickets for Chicago Street Course go on sale Thursday. Mike Harmon Racing gets a rebrand for the 2023 season. Mike Harmon Racing is pleased to announce that Gary Keller will be joining MHR for the upcoming 2023 NASCAR Xfinity Series season. Let's see. Riley Herbst will be returning to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2023. Let's see what I have. What else? And yeah, so that should do it for the turn 4 pit stop. And so what we're gonna do right here. So we're gonna go over the NASCAR Cup Series pretty much final point standings, and we're pretty much gonna give the drivers a grade. So pretty much we're gonna take turns on going through the drivers. Let me just pull up the final standings right here.
Are we gonna say like our favorite race or least favorite race?
No, we're gonna go over we're gonna go every driver and give them a grade.
Okay.
All right, starting with Joey Logano. So Addison, what final grade would you give Joey Logano? So we're gonna do like the top 30.
Okay.
So all right, so before we give grades, so this is how we're gonna do it. Either we do A+, A minus, B plus, B minus. You know, we're gonna do that as well.
Okay, from Logano, I mean, going back to his first championship in 2018, he got like 3 wins, but 2 before Homestead, and going into this year, he had like about like 3, 4. No, he had like 4 wins. I would say that he has more. He's got more wins to get himself to a championship. I would say Logano has had a bit of an A minus season, because there have been some races that he's been running up front, and there have been some races that he's just been running midfield.
I would have to give Logano a A minus as well. But for Logano, here's one thing though. If you look at this season compared to other seasons, this is the least amount of top 5s and top 10s he has had since joining Team Penske, probably since 2017. I mean, he got it done. Like I said, he won when it mattered the most. I mean, he got a win. He got himself locked in the championship 4 early, which pretty much gave him 2 weeks to prepare for Phoenix. And then Phoenix pretty much got it done when it mattered the most. So Logano, was he the most dominant driver all year? No. But I say I gave him an A minus. Pretty much the A because he ended up winning the championship. All right, so second in the final season standings is Ross Chastain. What would you give Ross Chastain as a grade? Final grade.
Okay, yes, he made it in the championship 4, but the only wins he had was Coda and Talladega. There have been some races where he has been fast on the half miles, like Las Vegas even Dover earlier this year, but those races he hasn't been able just to finish the deal. I mean, he was close to winning. It was close to winning the second Las Vegas race, but Logano was hard on his tail with fresh tires. Um, but the only race, but the race that Chastain was able to like be the fast car and able to pull it off was pretty much Coda. Talladega, he pretty much was just in the right position at the right time to just win it. And like I said, he's been fast on the half miles, and he's been fast on the half miles, but hasn't been able to finish the deal. I would give Chastain a B plus.
Now, for me, I'm actually going to give him an A on this one. If you look at Chastain this season, every race we had been to, he's been fast all year. I mean, if you look at his stats, out of everyone in the final season standings, he ended a season with the most top tens out of anybody this season. 21 top tens, most out of anybody. Top fives, same thing. Most top fives out of anybody. For 15 top fives and 21 top tens. So Chastain, I think he gets an A. I think Chastain this season was probably the most consistent driver all year long, with the most top fives, most top tens out of anybody. Also when it comes to I think stage wins actually no, but yeah, I mean Chastain pretty much he's just been consistent all season long. I mean, knowing how this year has really been a transition year, you know, with the next gen car, with all the parity, Chastain was kind of the one that really kind of stood out this year. Even though he didn't win the championship, if he had won the championship, I'd give him an A plus. But I give Chastain an A. All right, so Christopher Bell, what would you give Christopher Bell?
Okay, Christopher Bell from the start of the season was running up front, but some of the races he's been running midfield. I mean, pretty much after his win at New Hampshire, he kind of did start to come alive. But really, the time he did start to come alive was in the playoffs. And goes round of 12, going into Charlotte, he was in a must-win situation. Had fresh tires on a final restart, was able to sneak on through and get that win. And same thing happened at Martinsville. He was in a must-win situation, went on to win and be part of the championship for him. And Christopher Bell compared to last year, he did win at the Daytona Roval, but pretty much at the rest of the season he was running up front, but just hasn't had the pace to like finish the deal. And for this year for Bell, I would give him an A.
For Bell, I'll give him an A as well. So Christopher Bell, I mean, pretty much this season, I think this is probably his most consistent season he's had since his time at Joe Gibbs Racing. And probably he was the best running Joe Gibbs Racing car all year this year. I think this year he really took that. I think this year Christopher Bell kind of really became the top guy at Joe Gibbs Racing this year. And I kind of expect him to be the top guy in the years to come now in the long term. I think pretty much he's kind of their franchise guy at Joe Gibbs Racing. So yeah, I give him an A. All right, so Chase Elliott, what would you give him?
Okay, 5 wins. 2020, he also had 5 wins, but 2020 he didn't have that much consistency. But if he would have won the championship this year, I would say we wouldn't call this a Mickey championship, but yeah, as I said, Chase Elliott back in 2020 when he won the Cup Series championship. He had 5 wins, the same as he has this year, but 2020 he didn't have that much consistency. But compared to this year, he did have much more, a lot more consistency than 2020. I would give Chase an A minus.
I'm actually going to give him A minus. The reason I'm giving him A minus is because pretty much when the playoffs started, he pretty much lost that consistency. That he kind of lost that speed that he had in the regular season. Pretty much in the playoffs, yeah, he got that win at Talladega, but pretty much since then he didn't really show that much speed throughout the playoffs, to be honest with you.
Would you say an A minus or an E?
No, A minus.
Oh,
Yeah.
I misheard you right there.
All right. So Denny Hamlin, what would you give Denny Hamlin?
Okay. I would say this was not the kind of season that Denny Hamlin had. Like literally the first 6, 7, 8 races, he there weren't that much good races. Daytona crashed out. Um and then and as time went on, he didn't have that much good races, a lot of pit penalties. Until Richmond, he was able to was able to win that race. Pretty much that was like just be there at the right time, and that was only because like two cars in front of him, Truex and Byron, pretty much tried to do a Hail Mary strategy, but of course it didn't work. But when he won Charlotte, yes, he did start on the pole, but he didn't. But he wasn't like up front like too much. He was pretty much just up front when all the chaos was happening, and after that, and was just in the right, just in the lead at the time at when and the final restart. And there have been some races after that that Denny Hamlin like has had a good car, like Martinsville, swept the first 2 stages, but failed to finish the deal. I'm gonna give Hamlin a B minus.
I'm gonna give Hamlin a B. He has those 2 wins, but he kind of picked it up once we got to the playoffs. But here's another thing about Hamlin. Out of all drivers this year, he had the most penalties this year out of any driver this year with 16. And majority of them were pit road penalties. And that's something that I feel like that was kind of one of Hamlin's biggest weakness, is that the fact that there's moments he would show speed, but he would get penalized on pit road a lot this year. So I'm gonna give Hamlin a B. All right, 6th, William Byron. What would you give Addison?
Right. I would say before this year, William Byron has kind of had the kind of Ryan Blaney season, like get one win each year, and then like and 1 year get multiple wins. 2020 won Daytona, 2021 won Homestead. This year won Atlanta and then won Martinsville. I kind of thought he would have the consistency for the rest of the season, but for some of the races, he's like been like a kind of midfield runner. He did make it farther into the playoffs. He did make it farther into the playoffs, which was the round of 8, which was which was pretty good by him. But there were those races that he had the chance to win, like Homestead. He was up there, but pit road mistakes costed him. And Martinsville just had a poor qualifying, and then just couldn't bring the spring Martinsville version of himself all the way to that race, and failed to make the final 4. For Byron, I would give him a B plus.
All right, so for Byron, I'm honestly gonna give him a B minus. I mean, yeah, he had those 2 wins, but if you look, ever since when he got that win in Martinsville, he pretty much fell off a cliff throughout like the whole summer. I mean, he just was not majority of the finish. He had not gotten a top 10 finish until Darlington, if you think about it. Pretty much since his win at Martinsville, he went almost the rest of the regular season without a top 10 finish. And, he got those 2 wins and he picked it up during the playoffs, but honestly, he lacked consistency throughout the summer.
He almost had 3 wins, which that third win would have been at Darlington if Atlanta would have played nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. I mean, but at the same time, you got to do what you got to do to get those wins. I mean, I don't think I don't consider that a dirty move. I mean, it was already less than 2 laps to go, and Logano pretty much had to make his move if he was going to win. The only way he would win is if he put the bumper.
And
So
technically Byron's car was loose. I mean, just a little bump. He was loose, and that's what ended up sending him into the wall.
now, would you consider that a dirty move? Logano putting the bumper to Byron?
In all honesty, I'm a little iffy on it. I mean, at the moment, Logano did do a bump, but as I said, Byron's car was a little loose before towards the last few laps. That's what made him slide into the wall. And I am a little iffy on the move. I don't know if I would call it dirty or just he did what he needed to
Would you
do.
call it dirty or would you call it hard racing? Because
hard racing.
There's a total difference. I mean, what I consider dirty is, if he had dumped him, but he didn't dump him. He just moved him. He just moved him out of the way for a win. I mean, pretty much putting the bumper and stuff. I mean, that's part of racing. Sometimes, you got to do what you got to do to win. All right. So, let's see. Who's next? We got Kyle Larson. So, what would you give Kyle Larson as a grade?
Boy. Last year, 10 wins, 0 DNF, or all but one race had a DNF. He never had like a crash or a crash DNF at all. But compared to this year, I mean, yes, he had 2 wins, but this I would consider kind of championship hangover for Larson. As anyone said, he kind of did say that he was going to have like a championship hangover and then get back to what he did and get back to his 2021 version of himself. But that championship hangover stuck with him for the rest of the year, pretty much after Auto Club. But until we got to Watkins Glen, he did win there last year, and of course he did win the Xfinity race in that same weekend, and then brought that speed up to he brought the speed to the Cup race to win Watkins Glen, and I kind of thought he would be like up to the round of 8, but to see him eliminated. What really caused him to be eliminated in the round of 12 was probably because of those toe links or whatever they're called, that got broken. But if Larson would have not had that issue at the Charlotte Roval, I would guess he would have still made it into the round of 8. But I would, like I said, this was probably a championship hangover for Larson. But for him, I would give him like a B minus.
I actually give him a B plus. I mean, yeah, he got a championship hangover, but if you look at his stats, 3 wins, 13 top 5s, 19 top 10 finishes. He actually got more top 5s than Chase Elliott, who was the regular season champion, if you think about it. I mean, it wasn't a bad year. I want to say Kyle Larson had a bad year, but it's just up to his standards compared to last season. Last season, I mean, it wasn't a bad year. Kyle Larson, I mean, there's some races where he still showed speed. He still got 3 wins and stuff, but compared to 10 wins, I would consider it a championship hangover, but I would actually give him a B plus.
Okay.
All right, Ryan Blaney. What would you give Ryan Blaney?
Okay. He did have like the fastest car in some races. I mean, if you wouldn't count the All-Star race, which he did win this year. I would say that Blaney, as I said, Blaney had the consistency, but has had the fastest car, or has had the fastest car, but hasn't been able to like finish the deal and win the race. I would say Blaney, I would give him an A minus. Just by good effort.
Blaney, I'll give him a B. A B in this one. He has shown speed, but it's just somehow they just gotta fix those issues, whatever it is, pit crew issues, putting a whole race together or pressure. I don't know what it is, but I think it's just, the fact that, a goose egg on the win column. All right, so Chase Briscoe, what would you give Chase Briscoe as a grade?
Okay. After 2021, I kind of felt like he would have sort of a better year. But in all honesty, I did not think he would be able to get his first win at Phoenix. I thought he would honestly get his first win at Indy, the Indy road course. But Phoenix, which just happened to have been the race that I saw Chase Briscoe win in person. But when the playoffs came around, I thought he would honestly be like one of the drivers that will be eliminated like the round of 16 or round of 12. But to see him make it to the round of 8, it was a big step. I mean, if he would have made it to the final 4, I mean, he was running up front at Phoenix for a good amount of the race, and looked like he would have been able to sweep the Phoenix races. And if he was in the final 4, he would have had a good run. And yeah, but for Briscoe, definitely an improvement from last year. I would give him a B plus.
All right, so Chase Briscoe, I'm gonna give him. I should give him a C plus. And here's why. So plus because he did get a win, but honestly, he during that he had that summer stretch where he just wasn't really that consistent, but he did prove me wrong during the playoffs. I did have him out of the round of 16, but he made it all the way to the round of 8, so I'll actually give him a C plus. All right, so Daniel Suarez, what grade would you give Daniel Suarez?
Lonnie from leading his first laps of Trackhouse last year in Bristol Dirt, and how Trackhouse was this year, I would say was an improvement. I kind of felt like Suarez would have got like that first win on like one of the ovals. I mean, really, his first chance of like actually winning a race was Fontana. Like in the last few laps of the race, he was up front before Larson passed him late, and he ended up finishing 4th in that race. Did I expect him to win on a road course? Not really, because like I said, I thought he would ended up getting it done on like an oval. He had the good speed at Auto Club, had some good speed at Charlotte before getting wrecked. And like I said, did I expect him to win on a road course, which was Sonoma? Not really.
Now Daniel Suarez, I actually give him.
I didn't give him a grade yet.
My bad.
I would give him an A minus, since there were some races, actually no, B plus, since there were some races that he was running up front but came close, but still was able to get that win at Sonoma.
All right, so Daniel Suarez, I'm actually gonna give him a B. So Daniel Suarez, I mean, he finally accomplished this year what was missing from him. You know, he accomplished 2 things. Was finally get that first career win and finally made his first playoff appearance. Now, next season, I do expect, hopefully, maybe a breakout season from Daniel Suarez. Who knows? All right, 11th, Austin Dillon. What would you grade him?
Okay. There were some races this year that he was only one race that I remember that he was running up front was in Martinsville when he finished 3rd. I kind of didn't think he would even make the playoffs, but come to Daytona, anybody can win, and anybody has to make anything happen to make it into the playoffs. That's what Austin Dillon did. Even being the Lightning McQueen in the Dynaco's All Mine crash in the which was caused by rain, which ended up being the last crash of the Daytona race. But I would honestly give Dillon a B.
I'll give Austin Dillon a C plus. So the plus, he got that win. He came in clutch in the regular season at Daytona. But otherwise, I mean, he did show some consistency, but I still feel like he's still not at that championship level yet. All right, 12th, Austin Cindric. What would you give Austin Cindric?
Right from the start of the season, literally right from the start of the season, I kind of thought Austin Cindric I thought he would run up front in like some of the oval races. He ran well in 2020. But did I really expect him to win the 500? No, I did not. I mean, yes, the year before that, I mean, back in 2021, yes, he did win the Xfinity race at Daytona. But like I said, did I expect him to win the 500 in like literally his first full-time Cup year? No, I did not. But for Cindric, yes, he did get that win, and he did sort of well on the road courses. I mean, the only road course he pretty much did well was in the Indy road course. He finished third. But literally after the 500 win and like some of the oval races and some of the road courses, he didn't like have that kind of speed to put it all together. So I would give Cindric a C plus.
Oh, Cindric. All right. So Cindric, I would actually give him a C plus as well. I mean, he got a win in his rookie season, but he made it into the playoffs and he made it into the round of 12 in his rookie season. So I mean, I say his rookie season was actually pretty impressive. Now, the last time a rookie made it farther into the playoffs has in the playoff era has was Chase Elliott in his rookie year in 2016. Even though he didn't win, but he made it to the round of 12 in his rookie year. Let's see. 13th, Kyle Busch. What would you give Kyle Busch?
Oh boy. Okay. I would say this was kind of like a kind of 2020 version of Kyle Busch, but a little worse. I mean, yes, he did win Bristol, but that was only because Reddick and Briscoe ended up coming together in the final corner, and Kyle Busch just happened to be at the right position at the right time to win it. But Kyle Busch, throughout the entire season, he pretty much did has been midfield runner and like running out outside the top 20. Even Martinsville, he was like 5 laps down. Even when he didn't have an issue, his car was just that terrible. But besides Bristol, I would say the only race he would have had a chance to win was Darlington. I mean, he was running up front before having an engine failure. For Galapagos this year,
Oh yeah, Gateway, he had a car to beat too.
well, also Gateway, he also had it. There were pretty much 2 races he had a chance to win.
Las Vegas.
Failed.
If that caution didn't come out for Jones spinning.
Yeah, there were like 3 races that he had a good chance of winning, but failed. But I'm gonna unfortunately have to give Calabos a D on this one.
I'm gonna give him a D plus. He got the win, but here's the thing: if it wasn't for Chase Briscoe sending it in, Kyle Busch we would have been talking about Kyle Busch being winless for the first time in his career. Yeah. All right, 14th, Tyler Reddick. What would you give Tyler Reddick, Edison?
All right. Reddick. I kind of knew he would have the good speed to win a race. Did I expect him to win 2 road course races this year? Not really. I mean, Road America, he was running up front with Chase Elliott, was past him late to take the win, and I kind of thought that Reddick would like get that one win and then like have like just a decent season that. Yeah, but when he won Indy, and when we went to Watkins Glen, I was just about to say, move aside, Chase Elliott. There's a new road course figure in town, and that was Tyler Reddick. And if he was still in the playoffs after the round of 16, and when he won Texas, I would have said he would be like a round of 8 contender. But yeah, when he won Texas, I kind of felt like he would have a chance to win at the ovals, but he mostly had the good chances of winning on the road courses. Texas, I mean, he was running up front, but pretty much that race was all because of the whole lot of tire failures that happened in that race. But Reddick pretty much defended it. Pretty much was in the position to win after all those tire failures happened. For Reddick, B plus.
All right, so for Reddick, I'm actually gonna give him a B. I'm gonna give him a B plus as well. I mean, I knew this year I knew he was gonna get his first career win, but not only he got his first career win, he got three that wins the season. So yeah, I'll give him a B plus. 15th, Kevin Harvick. What would you give Kevin Harvick?
Okay, I thought this would be another 2021 Kevin Harvick, but Michigan was a track that he won at like 3 or how many times did he win at Michigan before this year?
before this year. So he won in. So he actually had 5 wins in Michigan.
5 wins before this year.
Yeah, five Michigan wins. So now he
I
has
kind of
6.
felt like the only chance that Harvick would have had to win would probably have been Bristol. But when we got to Michigan, I kind of felt like he would have been had a good chance to win there. And Richmond, yes, he finished second to Hamlin in the spring race. In the second race, I kind of knew he would have a chance to win and seal it off. But to see him be eliminated from the round of 16, it was kind of not the kind of Kevin Harvick that we knew. I mean, last year he made it to the round of 12 but was eliminated, but this was like the earliest that we've seen Kevin Harvick eliminated from the playoffs. Though he got 2 wins, I would give Harvick a B.
Harvick, I'll give him a B as well. I mean, he got himself. He finally ended that long winless drought this year. Not only getting back to victory lane, but getting 2 wins this year. So I mean, even though he didn't really show championship level consistency, he got himself back to victory lane. All right. So 16th, Alex Bowman. What would you give Alex Bowman?
Okay, after his win at Las Vegas, I kind of feel like Bowman would have like the kind of season he had last year. Yes, there were some races that he was just up there and like just trying to play spoiler. I honestly thought he would have like the same kind of season he had last year. They're like 3-4 wins, but the playoffs, there were some races that he had consistency, like Kansas, and then his concussion at Texas happened. For this year, or for next year, I would say that moment that this could be like the like has to give it all for next year. For Bowman, there were some races that he was running up front before that concussion at Texas. I would give Bowman a B minus.
Bowman, I'm honestly gonna give him a C minus. I mean, this year he started off well. I mean, he was actually 4th in the point standings, but right after when the summer hit, he just kind of lost all that mojo. And honestly, I mean, and then with his concussion that he ended up getting, I mean, it's just this season just hasn't really been. He's just kind of really been the weak link at Hendrick Motorsports, to be honest with you. So I give him a C minus. I give him a C minus. 17th, Martin Truex Jr. What would you give Truex?
Would almost say this would be the same kind of year that Truex had in 2020. Though 2020 he did get a win, but this year he didn't have a win and didn't even make the playoffs. I mean, Truex did have that kind of consistency and did have the kind of car to win, but like kind of like Blaney, he hasn't like had the he hasn't been able to put it all together. And to see him miss the playoffs this year, I mean, it was kind of a shocker. I mean, I kind of thought he would make the playoffs this year, but as I said this year, him not making the playoffs entirely, it was a shocker. I would give. Yes, Truex did not have any win this year, but I would give he did have that kind of consistency to win, but as like with Blaney, he's had the car to win, but hasn't been able to put it all together. I would give Truex a B plus.
I'll give Truex a B.
Okay.
Let's see. 18th, Eric Jones. What would you give Eric Jones?
Okay. I thought he would be a solid midfield runner, but the way he ran at Auto Club, I kind of thought he would bring it up to some more races. Like he'll probably like get some wins this year, but I kind of thought he would be like he would get himself into the playoffs, but in those races that he has had the car to win, he just hasn't been able to hasn't had like the kind of speed to do it. I mean, as I said, I knew he would win a race. Did I think it would be before? Did I think it would be before the playoffs? No, or actually, yes. Kind of. I mean, when Darlington came around in the second race, I felt like he would have a chance. But Jones was pretty much just up there. And when Bush had his issues and Truex as well, and even did do a good job of holding off Danny Hamlin for the win to get his second Southern 500 win. I would give Eric Jones a B.
I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna give him a B. I mean, he's really elevated that 43 team and Petty GMS. And honestly, I feel like, him winning at Darlington is definitely one of the toughest tracks to win at. And the Southern 500 is one of the toughest races to win, and knowing how long that race is. I mean, knowing that race is like an endurance, from day to night, pretty much from like the sun until the dark. I mean, that's one of the hardest races to win at. I mean, it's one of the cars where it's more of a driver's track, and Eric Jones, pretty much found the speed at the end to get himself a win there. 19th, Bubba Wallace. What do you give Bubba Wallace?
First half of the season, and yes, he did get another second place finish at the Daytona 500. After that, he was kind of like a midfield runner, but after Kansas, get a top 10. And literally after they announced that both he and Christopher Bell would be switching pit crews, and he got a top 3 at I think it was a top 3 at New Hampshire. And when the second Kansas race came around, I felt like he had a good chance to win, no matter what car he was in, like either in the 45 or the 23. I felt like he would have had a good chance to win. And of course, he was able to beat his own boss man, Danny Hamlin, to win that Kansas race. And in all honesty, I would give Bubba a B plus. I mean, there were some races that he was running up front, and some that was contending for the win, including Kansas. I would give him a B plus.
So Bubba, I actually give him a B. I mean, I feel like his stats this year are a lot better than this year. I mean, he got to win this year. This time is where he pretty much won on speed instead of, by rain shortened race, or luck by rain. So yeah, he finally got himself a legit, like pretty much a win where he won on speed. 20th, Eric Almirola. What would you give Eric Almirola?
Yeah, I would have said that we would be saying goodbye to the Bacon Man, but unfortunately, but he is staying for another year. But for Almirola, it wasn't really kind of the year that Almirola would have wanted. I mean, there haven't really been that many races that he has run up front, like intending for the win. I mean, I thought New Hampshire would have been a good shot for him, since he of course did win there last year. But for Almirola, I'm gonna give him a D.
Almirola, I agree. I'm giving him a D. Honestly, I expected some improvements this year, but he didn't make the playoffs, and he didn't really show that much speed. Like in the beginning of the year, I mean, I remember the first 3 races, he had 3 straight top 10s. I mean, he pretty much started out the season strong, but right after that, he just pretty much fell off a cliff after that. 21st, Chris Buescher. What would you give Chris Buescher?
There were some races this year that Buescher did have the consistency, like Richmond and some other races. Of course, they get that win at Bristol. And like Bubba Wallace, he gets a race win on speed, since of course his first win when he won with Front Row Motorsports at Pocono in 2016, that was only because of fog. But this year he was finally able to seal the deal and get a win on speed. And like I said, there have been some races that Chris Buescher has showed that consistency and has ran up front for the win. Like Sonoma was another race that he ran up front contending for the win. Was running up there with Suarez before he ended up starting to pull away. For Suarez, excuse me, I was about to say Suarez for a second, but as I Buescher, I give him a B plus.
All right, Buescher, I'm gonna give him a B. He got himself a victory in victory lane. Finally got RFK back in victory lane for the first time since 2017, and for the first time since 2014, got him a win at a non-super speedway. So yeah. Uh, 22nd, Justin Haley. What do you give Justin Haley?
Okay. First half, first half of the season, he wasn't really that good, but to see him run top 5 at Darlington, I mean, I didn't really expect him to be that good. I mean, with at least 3 top 5s this year, I mean, in all honesty, as I said, I did not expect it. But as the when we got to like the second half of the season, there have been some races that Justin Haley has been like running up there, and not like running far enough up to contend for a win. But most of those top 5s he got, the 3 top 5s he got this year was kind of because of all the chaos that happened. But Darlington, he was just up there. For Justin Haley, yeah, I'm gonna give him a C minus.
Justin Haley, I'm gonna give him a C. I mean, second half of the season, he started putting very good top 15 runs, top 20 runs first season at Colleague. So yeah, I mean, he's kind of really, even though in the first half he was kind of struggling, but once we got to the second half, he really started really figuring it out. 23rd, Michael McDowell. What would you give Michael McDowell?
For Michael McDowell, I mean, the only races he had like the good speed to win was on the road courses. I mean, he had most of his top 10s he got this year were on the road courses. But most of the oval races he hasn't been really like up front, like contending for the win. With 2 top 5s this year, I would honestly have to give Michael McDowell a C minus.
I'm actually gonna give Michael McDowell a C plus, and here's why. This year, Michael McDowell, this is the most top 10s he has had in his career. I mean, and then also that Michael McDowell has shown a lot of took a big step up come last year to this year. I mean, Michael McDowell, I mean, there's some races, even on mile and a half, where he was running in the top 10 this year. And I feel like him and Front Row Motorsports took a step up this year. So I'm giving him AC plus. 24th, Brad Keselowski.
Every year until this year, Keselowski has had that win. With only 1 top 5 this year, I mean, it wasn't kind of the season that Keselowski had this year. I mean, there were 2 races that he had a good chance of winning, and that was he was running off the top 10 in Richmond. Was leading in the last few laps of the fall Bristol race, but from all the right front tire failures that happened in that race, he obviously was one of the right front tire failure victims. Pretty much, I would say Bristol was probably going to be the only chance he would have ended up winning. And literally after his penalty he had after Atlanta, his playoff chances just went out the window right there. But for Keselowski, there were a couple races that he had the good consistency, and there were some that he was a midfield runner. I would give Keselowski a C plus.
All right. So Keselowski, I'm gonna give him a D minus. Honestly, this year, he just pretty much after that penalty, he's just been really irrelevant. I mean, besides that Bristol race where he ran well, and then I believe it was Texas where he got the pole. He's pretty much been midfield most majority of the time this season. And then getting hit with that penalty, which was definitely one of the biggest penalties that we've seen in recent memory, it definitely hit that team really hard. It just seems that they just lost their mojo right after that. All right, 25th, Cole Custer. What do you give Addison?
Hold up a minute.
Hold on, I'm gonna go get a White Claw, another White Claw. Meanwhile, you continue saying about Cole Custer.
Yeah. Cole Custer. For Cole Custer this year, I would say with 6 top five. It might have been like 5 or 6. A couple of those were non-points races. Cole Custer, I mean, the only race he had, the only race that he like did good was Bristol Dirt because he started on pole, but didn't even like. I don't even think he led like a single lap in that race. But yes, he did get a win in Kentucky back in 2020, but 2021 he didn't even. He struggled a lot, and of course this year, yes, he had the top tens, but not enough to like be up there contending for the win. I'm giving Cole Custer a D minus.
Well, I'm giving Cole Custer an F. I want to be honest. Literally all year long, he's been irrelevant. I mean, literally. And here's one thing though: Cole Custer has been outran by Rick Ware cars. He's been outran by RFK cars. By Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, both who are rookies in the Cup Series, who don't really have that much Xfinity Series experience compared to a guy who had up to who pretty much in 2019 was part of the big three in Xfinity. And I had high expectations for Cole Custer when he was moving up to the Cup Series. So Cole Custer, I give him an F.
Yeah.
26, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. What do you give Stenhouse?
Okay, he only had one top 5 this year, and that was his second place at Dover. But pretty much throughout all the year, he's like been running like the 30s, 20s, just outside the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
But for Stenhouse this year, I mean, there were only like 2 races that he had ran out like in the top 10 for most of the race. Like Fontana was like in the top 5 for a bit. Of course, to get second place at Dover. But Stenhouse for the rest of the year hasn't been really like that well. So I'm gonna have to give Stenhouse a D minus.
I'm gonna give Stenhouse a D. I mean, he did have that moment, I think, from Dover to, I believe, I think it was either Dover from Dover to, I believe, the 600, where he had, I think, momentum of top 10 finishes. But then after that, he's pretty much been mid-pack. So I give Stenhouse a D minus. 27th, Harrison Burton. What do you give Harrison Burton?
Oh boy. Okay. Only top 5 that Harrison Burton got this year, and that was at the Indianapolis Road Course. And pretty much throughout the entire year, he has been like, I mean, the only time he's had like a top 10 was Atlanta Superspeedway, and then of course at Indy. But throughout the entire year, he hasn't been really able to put on that speed. I mean, his top 5 at Indy, all because of the chaos. His top 10 at Atlanta, it's a super speedway. Anybody can have a fast car. But throughout the entire year, Burton has had a lot of 30s, like in the 30s, 20s, sometimes in the top 10. But I'm gonna give Harrison Burton an F, unfortunately.
I have to agree. I have to give him an F. I mean, his rookie season was kind of a disappointment, to be honest. 28, Todd Gilliland.
Okay. He did have that one top 5. He did have that one top 5, which was at Indy. He did get a top 10 also at Talladega, and also at a non-points race in Texas, which does not really count. But throughout the entire season, I mean, only 2 top 10s. One was at Talladega. Like I said, anybody can be fast at Talladega. And the Indy Road Course, he was only up there just because of all the chaos. I mean, one of the drivers in front row who has been rushed to Cup, just like how Anthony Alfredo was rushed to Cup. I mean, he didn't really perform that well last year, but Todd Gilliland this year, it kind of wasn't that much of an improvement to Anthony Alfredo last year. I'm gonna give Gillen an F.
I had to agree as well. Todd Gillen, same thing kind of with Harrison Burton. Pretty much his rookie year was pretty much a disappointment. 29th, Ty Dillon. What do you give Ty Dillon?
Okay. Let me pull up his name on the Ty Dillon. From me being teammate to a driver who won this year, Eric Jones. I mean, with 0 top fives and like literally only 1 top 10, and that was at the Bristol Dirt, and that was literally like the only race that he pretty much had the good chance of winning. But throughout almost all the races, Ty Dillon has been like a bit of a midfield winner, but I'm gonna give Ty Dillon an F.
I have to agree. Ty Dillon, I mean, and here's the thing. You look at the comparison between him and Eric Jones. I honestly feel like that it's definitely an F. I mean, Eric Jones was able to get a win in that in a petty GMS car. No, and Ty Dillon, I mean, 1 top 10 compared to Eric Jones's number of top 10s. I gotta say it's a disappointment.
Yep.
All right. So now, last but not least, since we're only doing top 30, 30th is Kurt Busch. What would you give Kurt Busch this season? Besides the races he missed, besides like pretty much from Daytona to Pocono. No, to Loughton, which was his last race.
If it would have not been for the Pocono crash, which is now being known as Kurt Busch's career-ending crash. I mean, with 5 top 5s and a lot of there were a good amount of races that he ran up front, like in the top 3. Like Nashville finished second, Gateway finished third. Of course, they get the win at Kansas, and of course that top 3 finished at Atlanta, finished top 5 at Phoenix, and a lot of good a lot of top 10, a good amount of top 10 finishes for Kurt Busch this year. But I mean, like I said, if it would have not been for the crash of Pocono, it would have been like he would have been like probably like up to like the round of like the first one out of the round of 16, or like be up to the round of 12, or heck, even the round of 8. But for Kurt Busch this year, though getting those top 10s and getting those top 5s and still getting that win at Kansas, so I'm gonna give him an A minus.
Kurt Busch, I'm gonna give him a B plus. Actually, he got the win at Kansas. He really, he elevated 23XI this year. I mean, he kind of, went there to kind of build that team up, and Kurt has been known for doing that in his career. But it's unfortunately, with the circumstances that happened. But honestly, I mean, he was actually looking really consistent in that car. So I mean, I have to give him a B plus on this one.
Yeah.
All right, so that will do it for the driver grades, and looks like we are ready to wrap this episode up. But before we actually start wrapping everything up, I just want to give everyone a huge thank you to all the people who have been watching the Turn 4 podcast all year long. It's been a grind from February to November, and we finally reached the final episode of season 3. So I want to appreciate you guys, everybody. We made it 3 years already. This was wrapped to our 3rd season. Felt like just yesterday when we were starting out in season 1, and I know season 1 was a whole different thing, but I rather not get into that. But I'm very grateful for this year. I mean, this year I got to experience, the season finale with Addison. It was definitely a very fun weekend, fun championship weekend. Pretty much being there from the track on Friday to Sunday, being there in the morning and all that stuff. It's definitely an experience that I'll never forget. And next year, I expect some big things next year. As next year we will be starting out our 4th season of the Turn 4 podcast, and there are some improvements that I am planning on making on the podcast, which will be announced soon. One of the goals I do have for next season is having the podcast, be available on platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. For people who didn't get a chance to watch it, they can listen to it on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Yeah, I mean, this year, we finally, we got a driver guest on this one. We got Jesse Bougie. I mean, that's definitely an interview that we had over there. It was definitely one of my favorite episodes of this year. And yeah, I mean, even though this year, we did have some roller coasters this year, but we made it through. But even though there was some roller coasters, it wasn't like a big roller coaster compared to where we were last year at the summer of last year. The summer of last year was, a lot of stuff went down, and we had to get stabilized again and kind of rebuild, but we finally got that rebuild in the Turn 4 podcast. And next year, I hope next year we finally get some episodes where all four of us appear in the Turn 4 podcast. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad it's over. I can finally, rest, spend time with family, as we got Thanksgiving coming up, we got the holidays coming up, and then back to business in February. So yeah, I mean, first, so the premiere now for people who are currently watching, so it will be on, so Jane, when it will be,
For the Chili Bowl.
yeah, once the Chili Bowl.
Oh my goodness.
The Chili Bowl Nationals.
Chili Bowl 2023.
Or like, when's the main event?
Okay. Hold up. Hand it up. Chili Bowl starts on January 9th and runs until January 14th.
January 14th. All right. So the Turn 4 podcast season 4 premiere will be on Tuesday, January 10th. Will be the season premiere of the Turn 4 season 4 premiere of the Turn 4 podcast. So Tuesday, January 10th will be the season 4 premiere, and hopefully all four of us will be there. And so yeah.
You want to do Rolex 24 picks too?
Yeah, we're gonna do Chili Bowl and Rolex 24.
Okay.
So yeah. Well, technically that's why we're doing season 4 premiere during the week of the Chili Bowl.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So we're also gonna do an episode on the week of the Rolex 24. So yeah. So pretty much follow us on our social medias, which I will have the link in the description. And yeah, Edison, anything else you want to add before we wrap up the season 3 of the Turn 4 podcast?
Oh, besides, it's been a fun season. We've had some good podcasts together, and we'll bring on the joy in 2023.
And all I gotta say before I wrap it up and we call season 3, we sign out on season 3. Addison, please get a job at Chick-fil-A. And we'll see you guys for the season 4 premiere of the Turn 4 podcast. Thank you guys very much. Enjoy Thanksgiving, enjoy the holidays. And Addison, please get a job at Chick-fil-A. And I'll say it once, and I will